and viewers, my name is Kiss the Butte and welcome back to KTB Network. Today I'm reacting to a DLC for Hogwarts Legacy has been canceled. Luke reacts. No. No. I saw that Hypnotic also replied to this, but I wanted to respond to this one because this man was first. But yeah, let's react. Let's get started. Now, I have my suspicions on why this is canceled because of the show and its awful reception about how Snape is black. You're gonna choose a handsome black man as Snape when he's supposed to be ugly and white? Okay, let's get started.
Technically streaming today, there's just a lot happening. Ubisoft just did exactly what I predicted they would do with a new subsidiary merging with Tencent. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it on stream tomorrow, I'm sure. But the other breaking news is that Warner Brothers is officially canceling the definitive edition of Hogwarts Legacy, which is wild. You know, it hadn't been officially revealed yet or announced yet, and yet they were working on it. But I think that there's a few key things that this tells us. For one, if we look at the actual article, I guess just to break it down and explain exactly what's going on here, what they've said is they've canceled the planned expansion for the popular Hogwarts Legacy title as part of an ongoing restructuring at the entertainment company's video game unit, according to people familiar with the matter. Again, remember, David Haddad, who was previously the head honcho at Warner Brothers Games, he left, most likely was fired and pushed out, but he left just a matter of like weeks ago or a month or two ago. And since then, the guy above him has kind of taken over his role and just been doing all of the work himself while they search for a replacement. Whether that actually happens or not, time will tell. He probably stays in that control position for a while. But anyway, they are systematically reviewing what they've got in their lineup, what they do.
I like this man's whole aesthetic. I mean, hello, it's like it's wood and black and nice, and it has some nice colors in the back. Okay, I see you.
Charge for it.
I appreciate.
Because shocker, if a project is not going to be profitable, it doesn't make any sense to continue working on it. You know, like
my setup is all white.
If you know after spending $50 million that this project is going to flop after you spend $200 million, just cut your losses, cut it at 50 and move on. What we've seen in the last handful of years is big projects like Suicide Squad, which frankly should have been canceled. They ended up getting full development. They get hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at them, and it's just a total waste. So they're trying to address that and prevent it from happening again. They say the expansion, which would have added new storylines to the original game, had been planned for release this year alongside a definitive edition with all of the content. The plans weren't publicly announced, but were reported last year by Bloomberg, of course. A spokesperson for Warner Brothers declined to comment, which says a lot. Warner Brothers canceled the project this week, in part due to concerns that the amount of content was not substantial enough to justify the price being considered.
That's smart, because they were probably going to sell it for $79 or $69, and then people would get pissed off by saying, who needs a definitive edition, and also for a DLC? I mean, we need extra content. We need to know what happened to Sebastian and what happens after you accept the powers or banish them, you know, but that's a smart business decision. But all right, let's see why.
I'm thinking that this was probably like they were going to launch a definitive edition at 70 and they were going to have maybe like an hour of new content, and that definitely would be really hard to justify unless it were like a major graphical overhaul or something. And it probably just wasn't that. It's probably something that a lot of other companies would do for free. I mean, we saw with The Last of Us Part 2, they added like a whole roguelike system. They, for God of War Ragnarok, added the Valhalla expansion for free, which was just like another roguelike mode. It was just crazy. Like they just
Oh, that's what's up. I have the Valhalla expansion. I do.
Threw tons of content at people, which was amazing and fantastic. And it's kind of hard to justify.
Also in the live tabs.
By charging a massive price when other companies are doing, in some cases, even more for free or for way, way less, for like a $10 upgrade or whatever. So, I mean, at the very least, they're trying to consider whether or not it offers a good value to the consumer, which is refreshing, I guess, because they definitely weren't too concerned with that with Suicide Squad. But anyway, you know, it's a game with like 2.5 hours of content stretched over 10 hours, and then they expect you to grind it for years on end. But anyway, I could ramble about that all day.
I hate grinding on video games.
As I say, this is the latest in a string of big moves.
When something requires a stronghold, if it's not GTA, I'm not doing it. I'm not motivated to do it when there's so many games to focus on. No.
Warner Brothers video game division, which is looking to return to profitability after a dire 2024. True dat. They just shut down Monolith, which was working on the Wonder Woman game, previously did all the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games. Earlier this year, the unit ousted its president, shuttered 3 studios, and canceled a high-profile game based on Wonder Woman. The company said it plans to double down on its biggest franchises, including Harry Potter. And of course, a Hogwarts Legacy sequel is still in development at Warner Brothers Avalanche in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so they're still doing it. Avalanche was working on the planned expansion with London-based Rocksteady Studios, which developed last year's failed Suicide Squad video game. Part of the plan was to restore a storyline tied to one of the original game's companions that was cut during development, people said, which is true. I believe it was Ravenclaw didn't have house quest tied to it. At one point they were going to, but they cut it because it wasn't far enough along and it was going to be too expensive to tie together in time for the game's release. So if you played Ravenclaw, which I did, you just didn't get a companion quest, which was kind of a bummer. Okay, yeah, I wanted to double check because I wasn't 1,000% sure, but yeah, it was
I was Slytherin, so I don't know.
Thakar, who was the Ravenclaw companion, but only had 2 quests, which were actually main story quests, and after that there was nothing else. So there wasn't any specific like long quest line like Sebastian had or Poppy had. So there you go. But they canceled it, canned it, and are moving on from it, focusing now entirely on the sequel, which Avalanche has been hiring like mad. I'm actually subscribed to their job listings like notification system with a secret email address. So I get emails whenever they have a new job posting because I'm very curious and cautious with that game. I want to make sure they're not hiring like a bunch of live service devs or people that are going to try to put battle passes and stuff in it. And so far, I've not seen anything that's particularly worrisome, which is good. But they've been hiring like crazy, which is also really good to see. It shows that this is going to be crazy big and ambitious.
But not too much, because you don't need that many cooks in the kitchen to make a great game. So
after the success of Hogwarts Legacy, I mean, I'm sure they've just been given a blank check to do whatever they want with it. So I'm excited to see what they do. But what is also interesting and what I expect is going to be a route of unfortunate news is now that this is canceled, I really struggle to see what Rocksteady and their future is. Like, I really struggle to see a good outcome from this because, like, again, you think of it
Rocksteady
like
has been in danger.
Non-emotional corporate executive, okay? Don't think of it as like a normal human being. If you are trying to find ways to cut costs within your company, you just canceled a massive project that you were working on that they had been working on for like over a year. And one of the 2 studios that was working on it, primarily Rocksteady, they also were responsible for one of the biggest flops, if not the biggest flop in your company's history. Hundreds of millions of dollars wasted. And now they don't really have anything.
So of course they had to cancel because one of their companies is a flop.
Significant on their like workbench. I really think there's a high probability that in the next
they're playing a numbers game here.
few weeks we hear news that Rocksteady's been shut down. I wouldn't like be thrilled about that. There's been rumors that they were pitching a Batman game. It's not, as far as I'm aware, clear if that was greenlit fully or if they're just working on the pitch, but we'll see. I mean, maybe they see the pitch and they're like, oh, Rocksteady is back. You guys can, like, you still got it. We can still do this. So yeah, you guys work on the new Batman game. It'll be a new trilogy after Arkham Knight, and you'll just do a whole new thing.
After
maybe
the disrespect of,
they get the chance to kind of redeem themselves with that. I mean, I really do hope that happens.
Unless they've cleaned house, I don't see that happening.
I would love more Batman Arkham games from the studio that made them so great.
Unless it's already happening, you let me know.
That made those Arkham games are gone now.
Exactly.
Notably, like even the founders, Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, they left before the launch of Suicide Squad to found a new studio elsewhere in, I still believe it's London. And they took a lot of devs with them, reportedly, as well. So the Rocksteady that exists right now is not the same Rocksteady that made Arkham Knight. A lot of those devs are gone. So,
and a lot of people have attachments to the name, and they keep forgetting that people come and go.
So you're just kind of left wondering, okay, what does Warner Brothers see in Rocksteady? And I'm honestly not sure. So I think that this is another instance of Warner Brothers trying to take decisive, major moves and decisive action to remedy years of mismanagement. And as one of my finance professors once told me, he said, when a company is violently ill, you need a violent doctor. And in other words, when there's a company that just has a lot of horrible problems, you got to get somebody in there that's just ripping stuff out and is willing to go crazy. And it seems like that's what they're doing. Canceling this project after they've worked on it for like a year plus.
Because they probably saw how much of a,
now I wouldn't be surprised if
they probably saw how much of a hot mess it was. A year into it, they saw everything and they were like, no, this is not it. People don't like this.
They also shut down Rocksteady, but we'll see. Time will tell. I hope they don't
get probably went, they probably went even more woke because the game was already woke, but it was well done. Okay. They probably went even more so. And this guy saw it and said, hell no.
But down, I hope they have a chance to redeem themselves. Rocksteady is one of like my favorite developers from back in the day. I mean, they made one of my favorite games of all time, Arkham City. I would hate to see that studio shut down, but seeing them cancel this project makes
okay.
me very worried for them. But
Someone else can pick it up and do better.
Time will tell what the future holds. But what I think most likely we see is just a continuing of doubling down on the major IP, the things they think are their safest bets, things like Mortal Kombat, things like Harry Potter, of course. There's rumors, of course, that they're going to be tying Hogwarts Legacy's sequel into the HBO show. I don't know what that means because the HBO show is a retelling of the books, but Hogwarts Legacy is a massive prequel, like well before the happenings of Harry Potter. So I really don't know how that works. I don't know what they're doing, if they're moving the timeline up or if they just are going to have a couple little, Easter eggs planted here and there. But either way, it seems like they're really trying to connect all of this stuff and put a lot of money into it. And it might not be a bad time either, because of course they're doing the whole Ministry world at Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida. So, there's a ton of money being poured into the Harry Potter franchise right now. And they're going to continue to double down on that since it's their big money make.
But this might, the TV show might make or break the sequel to Hogwarts Legacy. It might, just because of the direction it's been taking. So,
I mean, you can't really argue with the success of Hogwarts
not to end my sentences in a proposition, but
Legacy. They printed money for them. But we'll see if the sequel can do the same thing, because I'm honestly not sure if it can, since Hogwarts Legacy kind of scratched that itch people had for decades to explore Hogwarts, and be a student. And I'm not sure
then
how
people
a sequel,
might not,
how does that. How a sequel meets that same demand.
you add things that weren't in the game before and make it even more enticing. Just as the first film was enticing, up until the last film, it got darker. Make it dark. Add more elements in there. I know. Like a lot of people have been requesting love interests, in a PG-13 manner. You can add that in there. There are many different things that you can do, and to also explore the bad guy route, from the last game, because we didn't get to do that. So there's many ways we can expand and entice people for a second game. But he is correct.
If that demand's been satiated, I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll talk more about it when there's another development. Let me know what you think of all of this.
All right, y'all. Subscribe to this man. But that was my reaction to Luke Reacts. And yeah, I pretty much gave my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the video below, down in the comments. If you've enjoyed this reaction, like and subscribe. If you vibe, become a P today, and let me know what other gaming videos you want me to react to, and also check me out in the live tabs. See you later, guys. See you guys later.